Hello and welcome. This interview is part of the series I'm doing to publicize the 2023 conference of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry. The conference is called CSICon, and it'll take place in Las Vegas from October 26th through the 29th. Today's guest is science communicator Dave Farina. This is what it says about Dave on the CSICon 2023 speaker site. Dave Farina is a science communicator and generalist best known for his YouTube channel, Professor Dave Explains, which I looked up, and it has 2.5 million plus subscribers. While the channel is primarily a database of academic tutorials to help students with a variety of subjects, Dave is also passionate about neutralizing disinformation and science denial, from flat earthers and creationists to anti-vaxxers and medical hoaxes. Dave hopes to serve as a beacon towards the rehabilitation of public science literacy. And from Dave's own site, I glean the following. He received a BA in chemistry from Carleton College and performed graduate studies in both synthetic organic chemistry and science education at Cal State Northridge, receiving an MA in the latter. Prior to this, he taught for about a decade in various high school and undergraduate settings, specializing in organic chemistry, but also general chemistry, physics, and biology. He's also written a book, Is This Wi-Fi Organic? Welcome, Dave. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So that looks like a fascinating book. It's on my list now. A guide, subtitle, Guide to Spotting Misleading Science Online. How long ago did you write that?
I wrote that, I think, 2 years ago.
And there's a bunch of reviews on Amazon. I have to read one of them. I bought this book to find out if my new Wi-Fi router is organic or not. But after reading the entire book, I still didn't get the answer to that question. I think I'll have to buy a new router.
False advertising. Oh, well.
I love when people do stuff like that. So let's talk about your upcoming presentation.
Sure.
The title is The Birth of the Science Communicator. You're scheduled for Friday of the conference at 9:30 a.m. And here's the official description. What is a science communicator? The era of once-a-decade outliers, such as Carl Sagan, is long gone. In this current era of an internet-borne disinformation and science denial pandemonium, science communication has emerged as a vibrant and painfully necessary field, with an army of science scholars focusing their expertise exclusively on informing the public. Charlatans and anti-science propaganda have never been more prevalent, and the stakes have never been higher. As the existential challenge of the 21st century begins to materialize, how do we help people know what is true? This talk by Dave will clarify the issues and players involved, as well as highlight important strategies that can be implemented towards winning this war with ourselves. So what else do you want to say about that talk that you're going to give us in just about a month?
I mean, it's a pretty good summary. Yeah, I think that we're in a unique position right now. Obviously, the concept of a science communicator is not brand new, but there's more of an urgency for it now, and more of a need for greater numbers of qualified science communicators, effective science communicators, and in greater numbers because of the internet. It's not that the internet is brand new, but now that we're about 30 years into, the internet, and people have become very effective at disseminating disinformation and hoaxes and things like that. And especially at this precise moment in the post-pandemic world, we're seeing unprecedented levels of science denial and charlatans that are taking advantage of people who are prone to science denial. So we really need an army of career science communicators that are going to be able to address the myriad bad faith actors on the internet and neutralize them one by one. So that's something that I take very seriously that's my career. And I like to try to highlight some of these issues for other people and try to inspire others into following down this career path.
Yeah, the latest, I mean, as you said, the internet's been around a while, but it keeps evolving, and there's more platforms that jump up, and then all of a sudden they become popular. And of course, the latest one, at least that I'm aware of, is TikTok, which just has crazy pseudoscience, conspiracy theory, people who promote those things, and they get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe more views. It's quite disturbing.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. TikTok. I mean, really the rise of social media in general. For the first 10 years or so of the internet, it was sort of relegated to just for nerds kind of status, but then it became totally seamlessly integrated with every aspect of our daily lives. And this has had a profound effect on epistemology, how people are determining their reality. And we're firmly in a post-truth era now where people can create their own realities because any type of reality that somebody wants to believe in, there will be media crafted to corroborate that reality and monetize it. So we're seeing an unprecedented level. I mean, it's gotten to the point where I would say the majority of the public holds some anti-science belief of one kind or another. Now, some are more far gone than others and truly subscribe to almost any kind of conspiratorial thought that you can think of. But even fairly educated and headstrong people will harbor, or are susceptible to certain aspects of, anti-vax thought or things of that nature. So it really is a dire situation that needs to be addressed urgently.
Have you given this talk or something similar at any other conference?
I have. I've given it to a few different conferences. One in Portland, and then at an organization in Houston. And I always tweak it a little bit for my audience. And I think for CSICon, I'll definitely be preaching to the choir more than I think ever before. So I'll definitely be de-emphasizing, sort of convincing the crowd of the urgency of the situation. I think everyone there will know,
Yeah, that's a
are
good
already
strategy.
aware of the urgency. But what I'd like to do is kind of highlight some of the strategies I've used in exposing very particular bad faith actors, how I think I've been successful at doing it, and then just sort of, rallying together and just kind of looking over our shoulders a bit. Where are we at? What has worked so far? What hasn't worked? I think that we can all agree that calmly presenting facts has not worked, has actually backfired completely. And so we're at a position where we need to identify some new strategies. So not that I'm definitely not going to go up there and say I have the solution to ending science denial, but I definitely have had some success in exposing bad faith actors and would like to share my experiences.
What got you interested in science in the first place, by the way? A particular book, a teacher, some TV show?
I mean, I was always interested in science, I think, as far back as I remember. My father's a chemist, and so there was definitely some influence there. But I'd say the first thing that got me interested was astronomy. I remember being, 5 or so and getting my first book on the solar system and just thinking it was the coolest thing imaginable. And in college, I majored in chemistry as well. I found myself drawn to it. I was fascinated by the subject. And even though I knew, even at a young age, that I didn't want to be a scientist myself, I'm more of an artist. I just always was so fascinated by science and really felt compelled to understand it. Till I wanted to understand the molecular world. And so when I stumbled upon science communication as a career option, it was and this is why I go to universities now and try to talk to undergrads and graduate students about SciComm as a career option, because I think that so many people are not aware that this is something that you can go into. It really appealed to me because it appealed more to my artistry, in a sense of storytelling, in a sense of crafting something. I can build these pieces to share with the world. So it certainly suits me a lot more than, say research or even teaching, although I did enjoy teaching in the past. But yeah, science communication, I think, is something that if I want to try to inspire some of these younger minds to also follow into this path, because it's sorely needed. Yeah.
So, yeah, I wanted to explore a little bit of like how you transition from being a teacher of a scientific field to the SciComm mold of going outside academia.
Yeah, so I was teaching organic chemistry at this trade university in Southern California here, and I at one point decided that I wanted to try to get some passive income going. I was actually in a touring band at the time, and so we were all trying to figure out ways to make passive income so that we could earn income while we were out on the road. And so my idea, we all had our little ideas, and mine was to start a YouTube channel, and I was just fresh off of this teaching job, so I had my organic chemistry tutorials or my lectures lectures fresh in my mind. So I'd simply delivered my lectures to camera as though I was teaching class. I had my whiteboard and everything, and I made a little logo and some branding, and I made my channel and put them out and thought, who knows what'll happen, you know? And I was actually shocked at how well they were received immediately. This was 2015, so the slight advantage was that it was not quite as saturated as it is today. So there was a lot of enthusiasm from organic chemistry students who said, wow, this is, you know, these tutorials are extremely helpful. And then I started branching out to other topics, and, you know, before I knew it, it was very much the A plan and the centerpiece of my life, and it's only grown since then.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, I knew of you, and most of the videos that you do on YouTube in the category of flat Earth for some reason are the ones that YouTube suggests for me. So
Yes.
I knew you mostly as a flat Earth debunker, and I really didn't know the amazing variety of topics that you cover. I've done a lot of do-it-myself stuff at home, and you know, okay, if I have the electrical work, I'll look at electrician's channel where they're teaching you that kind of stuff. If it's sheetrock, it's a different channel. You know, if I want to do something in gardening, I look at that. But like, you cover so many topics, I don't understand how
Mhm.
you, one, have the interest to do that, and second, have the time and patience to learn the subject well enough to teach it to other people. I want to comment on that.
Well, so there's a lot to talk about there. So first, chemistry is the central science. So fortunately, with an education in chemistry and the other subjects that I had to study to get the chemistry degree, I found myself in a position to be able to make tutorials on biochemistry, biology, physics. I studied a little bit of astronomy, math. I did quite well in math up to a certain point. So for the first 3 or 4 years, I was just covering every subject that I felt that I had enough of a command on to generate tutorials up to a certain level. Now, bear in mind, most of this stuff is freshman, sophomore year undergrad, so it's not exceptionally complex. A lot of it is relatively introductory material, but I eventually did hit a wall with what I felt that I could cover, and so I started hiring writers to write scripts for other subjects. So certainly now, when you see tutorials on philosophy and economics and immunology and a bunch of these other topics, I'm hiring either PhD candidates or PhD holders to write those scripts, and then check the finished product to make sure I didn't make any errors with the visuals. And so it's been a very interesting process because I actually sort of learn for a living. It's hard to retain all of the information in all these subjects, but I do kind of get this little crash course in like a 101 style course of these dozens of different subjects as I go about editing and revising the scripts to fit my voice, generating the visuals to illustrate the concepts that are being described. So I get to kind of learn a little bit about all these different topics, which has been incredibly rewarding, especially some of the stuff I'm doing now with zoology and ecology, a lot of these life and earth sciences that I had never studied before and didn't really know anything about. So it's expanded my worldview a lot, which I value tremendously as a generalist. My mission is to become one of the more formidable generalists in society. I want to go broad, not deep, and so this definitely fits in very nicely with that mission statement. So,
Are
mhm.
there some subjects that just bore you to tears, and but you felt you had to cover anyway, even if someone else like wrote the initial script? Like one of the topics that's not even science has to do with money management. I saw you doing one of those.
Right. Yeah, that was an economics series. So I'm at the tail end of economics. So it was, microeconomics, macroeconomics, and then personal economics at the end. So, I mean, yes, if I'm being honest, that interests me less than certainly astronomy or chemistry or something like that. But it is very important knowledge. That is very introductory level. That is like high school economics content. But it's good information nonetheless, and I do feel slightly more knowledgeable for having done that. But I would not call any of the topics boring. I really don't think there can be such a thing as a boring topic. Just it can be taught in a boring way, perhaps. Hopefully, I managed to do it in as entertaining a way as possible without sacrificing any of the quality of the information.
Which are some of your favorite subjects that you've tackled?
So, like I said, my first love was astronomy, just all things space. And so, as soon as I started broadening into other subjects beyond chemistry, I knew that I was going to do an astronomy series. And so, I do have a fairly lengthy astronomy playlist, and that was a blast to make those ones. I am having a lot of fun expanding my knowledge of chemistry more seamlessly into biology because I never really studied biology. But given that I studied organic chemistry, there was some overlap with biochemistry. I had to learn about biomolecules, and so inevitably I learned about DNA protein interactions and things like that. And I did take a few biochemistry courses in grad school, but it's lately for some of the things that I've had to debunk, particularly with creationists, I've had to develop my molecular biology knowledge, and so it's been a lot of fun making some very, very in-depth debunks regarding some of the propaganda that's been coming out from certain sources about molecular biology, evolutionary biology, origin of life research, things like that. So that's also been, and that's some of the stuff that has set me apart from other debunkers because it's a level of complexity of material that very few others are able to tackle.
So I was going to ask this later, but since it's kind of is connected to what you just said, I'll ask it now. I asked on my Facebook page if anyone of my followers wanted me to ask a question on their behalf. There were several. Thiago said, ask you if you have anything nice to say about James Tour.
No, not particularly. I mean,
So I had never heard of this person.
yeah.
I Googled it, and the first pop was actually your debate with him, and I watched about, I don't know, 45 minutes of that before I wanted to, I just couldn't take it anymore. It's like
Yeah.
he just, all right, tell people who James Tour is and about your debate, please.
James Tour is a creationist chemist apologist who has risen to prominence among the fundamentalist Christian world as someone who rails against origin of life research. So everybody knows that creationists like to spread propaganda about evolutionary biology. But James Tour is this guy that with the Discovery Institute, they're now tackling origin of life research because he's the first guy who has the capability, he has the understanding of the chemistry vernacular to be able to spin lies about origin of life research, just like the other people at the Institute spin lies about evolutionary biology. So he has been leading them into that realm, and he's also the only really accomplished scientist in their ranks. So they sort of prop him up as this, look at this guy. He's like the best scientist in the world. And he says this. And no one had really been tackling him in terms of exposing his lies. And so I took it upon myself to do that. And it initiated this escalating tit for tat where he produced increasingly more and more vile and inappropriate content character assassinating not just me, but prominent members of the scientific community that work in that field, misrepresenting their research, calling them frauds, including Nobel Prize winners. I mean, we're talking about really just insanely inappropriate stuff. And so it culminated in this debate, and you saw some of that, and he got quite shouty, as many of
I
us
have
saw.
never seen a debate like that, and I've watched
Yeah.
atheists debate Christians, Muslims debate. I've never seen somebody, especially in what's supposed to be a science debate, get that angry that constantly.
Sure. Well, that's what happens when you confront and expose a delusional narcissist. They are not capable of allowing themselves to be seen as anything other than what they project themselves to be. But he is certainly a charlatan. So,
So were
yeah.
you expecting that going in? I guess so, because your slides were not holding anything back about what you were calling him.
Yes, I was expecting it because he shouts in his content alone in his office. So imagine in person. I certainly knew he was going to do that, although it still is a little jarring when it's directed at you. Of course, I knew that apart from that being very irritating, and because I then had to ramp up my intensity to get a word in edgewise, I knew that that was going to be something that for any neutral observer would instantly conclude that he has something to hide or is being, a bad faith actor here. So it's good for me that he got shouty. Yeah.
he has to deny anything that is different than the Christian dogma, right? Is that correct?
Yes, he is scripture before science for him. That's just his personal worldview. And so, if he believes in the veracity of biblical scripture, then obviously abiogenesis is an impossible event. And so he uses his chemistry, his ability to use chemistry jargon to weave a web of lies for the public and to some extent, possibly for himself. I'm not sure to what degree he is
Does he believe it, or is he a
doing.
liar? Yeah.
Yes, and so I think that's why he gets so angry, because when I expose his lies in my content, and then even more so to his face, and do not relent and really push him, and I made it a point to bring a lot of his lies with me to press him on them, and of course he got very, very irritated by that, because he can't let these truths penetrate his psyche.
So was he trying to disarm you, and he gave you that gift at the beginning?
No, he was trying to. What's the opposite of poisoning the well? He was trying to paint himself as the moral superior. You know what I mean? Sort of the like, look at what a great guy I am. But to anyone who had seen any of his content, I mean, it's just insane the way he attacks. He would use cartoons of me. So there were a lot of the lies that I brought, because there was a part in the Q&A where someone asked us to say something nice about each other, and he offered this completely fake compliment about my YouTube content, saying, "Oh, I think it's great that he can make this YouTube content," which, by the way, all of his students use to pass his class. But it was obviously a fake compliment, because then I showed a slide with quotes of all the insults he's leveled towards me in his content about Dave doesn't understand chemistry. The man can't understand anything about chemistry. He can't read a paper. He's a buffoon. He doesn't understand. He's clueless. He's clueless. I use that opportunity to confront him again and say, "You're congratulating me on my excellent chemistry tutorials, but you've said 1,000 times that I don't understand chemistry. So which one is it?" And then he just completely lost it. I mean, it's just every time you show someone like that their own lies right to their face, they just become enraged, because they cannot admit that they've lied, that they've been out of line, anything like that. So that was what those explosions were all about.
Yeah, I'm going to have to include a link to that in the article where this video is going to be embedded. And I got to warn you people, it's
It's something.
It's something. All right, so back to your subjects. Have you what is your most controversial thing that you've still have you tackled gender and sex, for example?
So this was something that I avoided for a while, and then I made a very brief video tackling some of the issues with transgender people and so forth. And this alt-right commentator, Matt Walsh, decided to take that video and do a hit piece on it, and that prompted an onslaught of trolling unlike anything I've ever experienced before. I'd already had the flat earthers and the creationists and everything coming to me every day. This was nothing compared to what the incel alt-right community was doing to me. I had to turn off comments on a bunch of videos. I mean, it was a level of harassment that's really unthinkable. So I made one video to respond to his video, and then I left it at that, because the whole ordeal was like, it's not worth it. I can't. This is just so unbearable.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the subject that I personally have seen most you talk about, which is flat Earth. Is this gaining or losing momentum at this point? I've heard people, giving opposite viewpoints on that question.
It's definitely not gaining. Sadly, I don't think it's losing much steam. I think it's just sort of floating where it is. It's a very small community. Nevertheless, it's people like to amplify it. They'll read some survey that says 17% of people think the Earth. No, they don't. It's like 10,000 people total in the whole world. But there's a couple of people with YouTube channels, and they have their little followers and everything. And that's actually what got me into debunking, is that I made in my astronomy series, I capped it off with a flat Earth debunk and an astrology debunk, actually, the latter of which I thought was going to get me more heat. But instead, the flat Earth one, these guys, the Globe Busters, took it and made a live stream where they were very rude and, trying to mock me and everything. And I had never experienced that before because I had never done any debunking content. It was the first time anyone was talking about me on YouTube. And I was like, what is this? So I took their live stream and chopped it up and made it into a 45-minute response that was very snarky and humorous, and that's now the most viewed video on my entire channel. And I milked it a little longer. I did a few more debunks just because it was so popular. I couldn't believe how many views and how many people wanted to watch this content. It's very amusing for a lot of people, apparently. So I made a few more. I've now pretty much moved on. I think there's more pressing things to debunk, but
So
I had fun with that. Yeah.
while I was prepping for this and looking through YouTube for your stuff, I found a podcast, I think it was, or a YouTube channel that you were interviewed on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was recent. It was with Flat Earth Dave.
Oh yeah, right. A little debate. Yeah, we had a little debate.
Was that very recent?
That was a year and change ago.
Oh, okay, it wasn't really brand new. So I watched part of it because I just couldn't take whenever Flat Earth Dave would talk and you would try to explain something to him. So, like, how do you know if these people really buy it or they're pose and they're just doing their shtick because they like a following and that's the only way they can get a following?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, that's it. No, they are all that. Because the thing is, you can only do. I think that somebody like him maybe got into it naively with genuine intentions, but there's only so long you can do this without realizing how unbelievably indefensible flat Earth is. It's just the bottom of the barrel, the most obviously and clearly, like, it's not like anti-vax or something where if you don't understand molecular biology or something, or you don't understand immunology, and then you fall for the government this, the government that. We're talking about a level of conspiracy that is just absolutely unthinkable and a violation of naked eye observations and logic a child could understand. I mean, this is just it's just so indefensible that every single one of I call them flat Earth priests, every single one of them knows they're wrong, but they have developed this sort of a little bit of celebrity in this mini culture. It's their income. It's not a lot of income, but it's better than having a job. So they just maintain it.
Their fame, such as it is.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I watched Behind the Curve, and it concentrates on Sargent and Patricia Steer.
Yep.
And I think Sargent said, well, if you show me evidence, I'll just change my mind. And I'm thinking, well, no, you won't. You get invited to be the head speaker at conferences. You got a podcast. It's like, if you change your mind publicly, you lose everything that you're now, famous for. So why?
And they've done body language assessments and things like that on him, and it's just painfully obvious every time he's speaking that he does not believe what he's saying. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So the description I read from the CSICon site includes, Dave hopes to serve as a beacon towards the rehabilitation of public science literacy. So the word rehabilitation presumes or implies that something better was in the past. Do you actually think it is worse, and is that because of the internet?
I do, and yes, that's why. I think that certainly the general public. Okay, there's two things. Number one, if you go back before 1900 or so, the body of scientific knowledge was minuscule compared to what it was 100 years later, right? The progress that occurred within the 20th century. I mean, we barely knew that molecules exist in 1900, right? We knew almost nothing. There was almost no truly modern chemistry. We didn't know that DNA was the genetic code, right? We didn't have, like, there were fields of science that literally didn't exist, and all the ones that did exist, right?
We thought the galaxy was the universe. That blows my mind.
Exactly. Right. And you go back a couple hundred years before that, and we thought the Earth was the center of the universe. So I'm just saying that the amount of progress that occurred in the 20th century was such that in the 21st century, lay people have no hope whatsoever at keeping abreast of even basic scientific knowledge in every field, let alone the frontier, right? The frontier of any scientific field is going to be completely unintelligible to lay people and even to scientists in other fields, right? A biochemist is not going to know what's going on in cosmology. There's just no overlap there. So we know too much science. It's too far removed. It's too far removed from intuition that the general public is never going to be able to get there. But then we also now have the internet, such that these false narratives can spread like wildfire and ravage the populace, and just instill all these conspiratorial ideas, and it's extremely problematic.
Something like, in the last Pew Research poll I saw on the subject, over 40% of Americans believe in psychic powers.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a higher percent believe in astrology. It's scary. Where do you think the English-speaking world stands compared to the rest of the planet's population? Spanish, I think, is the most popular, maybe Mandarin language spoken on Earth. Like, where do you have any done research on how bad is America and the rest of the English-speaking world compared to the rest of the planet?
It's a good competition. I mean, I know that there's a lot of science denial in Spanish-speaking nations. There's a lot in Indonesia. Like it's hard to understand what the factors are that cause this to bubble up. I think in certain Asian countries it might be less for various political reasons, for various industrial reasons. I'm not really sure what the cultural reasons are. But I mean, science denial is everywhere. It's not like there's any corner of the earth that it doesn't touch. But in America, it does truly seem to be a bigger problem than in the rest of the world. But I do push back a little bit. It's not just America. Every country has it. Europe has it. I mean, it's everywhere.
So, what do you think of this one conspiracy I just heard mentioned again, and this pops up a lot? The birds are not real conspiracy. Of course, it's a Poe conspiracy. What did you think of the idea of doing that to show how easy it is to get people to believe
Mm-hmm.
really, crazy things?
I mean, I think it's funny. It's satire, clearly. And I think it's humorous, and I think it's a fun thought experiment. It's a fun jab to go, you're all talking about this now, and I think it's like you can say something like, oh, China doesn't exist, and you could say that to a flat earther and watch it, screw with their mind, because they'll say, oh, you haven't seen the Earth from space. Well, you haven't been to China, so I guess it doesn't exist. It's not to mention the fact that there is some level of credence to the idea that some of these conspiracies, in particular flat Earth, have some sort of psyop nature, whether it's the CIA or whatever it is, just sort of dropping something into the collective consciousness to see how the world reacts. It's not completely far-fetched. So, but it is very odd. We're in a new phase of human civilization. The way people gather and spread and share information is so categorically different from how humans have interfaced with information from the rest of human history, that it's so bizarre, and we have to figure out how to get a hold of it as quickly as possible, or it's going to destroy us.
Have you tackled cults, QAnon, those sorts of things?
Not QAnon, because that's so purely political, and I try to stay away from anything that doesn't have at least some scientific aspect to it. So propaganda, I can tackle the political motivations of propaganda when they're science-based, because I can also debunk their science. But yeah, I haven't tackled anything just purely political yet.
So, how about the topic that has, been all over the media the last, forever, but got resurrected because of the Navy leaked videos? I mean, I've had talks with people on this subject. In fact, I just interviewed Brian Dunning because of his new movie, the UFO movie They Don't Want You to See, which takes a scientific stab at dissecting whether or not extraterrestrial civilizations could even visit Earth. Have you ever tackled that subject?
I haven't. I'm definitely fascinated by it, and I saw that Mick West will be at the conference.
Mick West is going to be, I think his talk is named something like, "Why is the US government even investigating this?" Yes.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious to hear more from him. I'm a skeptic, as is everyone there. I try not to. The thing is, I try to stick to things that can be very more easily debunked by basic knowledge of physics and biology and chemistry and things like that. Whereas when you get to the UFO stuff, it's like, look, I'm very strongly skeptical of this, but I don't know. I can't prove I can't prove anything here. So Mick is better at that. I'll leave it to him. You know what I mean? There's so much investigative journalism that goes into stuff like that, which is not really my forte. I've done a little bit of it when I've exposed kind of a cult leader that lies about astrophysics, and I have to dig into like his fake Kickstarter scams and like all kinds of that stuff. But it's not. I like to just use science to expose bad science. So with the UFO stuff, it's a lot harder for me.
So let's talk one more topic. I like to ask people this sometimes. Science fiction stuff. What book, TV, or movie that you're familiar with best got science right?
So my favorite science fiction movie of all time, my favorite movie in general of all time, is 2001: A Space Odyssey, and that is about as spot on as you can get. A decade before Star Wars had all the pew pew sounds, we have just deathly silent outer space, and obviously it's a completely different kind of movie, but I definitely fell in love with that at a young age, and
Well, silent except for the Blue Danube playing whenever there was.
that's right, which is a moving section as well. But yeah, that's one that comes to mind. I do have pretty high bars. I have a pretty high bar when it comes to to sci-fi. There are definitely movies that kind of like get it pretty. Like Interstellar was solid. There was definitely some solid physics in there, and then some other moments that were not as didn't work as well. But to me, it's like if it gets a pretty good for me, then it's just fine for the public. I enjoy For All Mankind, the Apple TV show.
Oh my God, I love alternate history, and that was fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good. I think there's more of it coming.
I did hear that. When at the end of the first season, they had the Sea Dragon launch. And I said, oh, why'd they go into science fiction? This is nonsense. And then I looked it up, and that was actually a proposal that NASA scrapped because there was no reason to put that kind of weight into orbit.
Right. Yeah, it's historical accuracy weaved with fictional narrative, I feel like. Yeah.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back to CSICon. Have you seen the speaker list? I know you mentioned Mick West. Anyone else you're particularly looking forward to meeting?
Let's see. You have to remind me.
Bill Nye. I interviewed
Bill
him.
Nye will be there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you ever talked to him?
I've never met Bill. No.
Great opportunity to talk to him. He happened to be a guest at one of the first conferences I went to. Wasn't even a speaker, and he just talked to anybody who would talk to him. It was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I know Richard Dawkins will be there. I spoke to him for like 20 seconds last year, but yeah. I'm excited to meet any speakers there. I'm just excited to be part of it.
Okay, so with that, let's call it a wrap. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in real life in Vegas in just a matter of weeks.
Me as well. Yeah, I'll see you there.